Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're immersing ourselves in a space that's, well, necessary, but often profoundly uncomfortable. It's that professional friction point, where really genuine good intentions just crash headfirst into significant, measurable harm.
Yeah.
And our focus today is the really difficult case of a teacher, let's call him Mr. James. He's experienced, but his core belief system that he treats everyone equally is about to hit the wall of accountability.
And we're using his specific case to explore a really critical phase in professional development. It's part of the 6 stages framework, specifically stage +1. We call it emerging awareness.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to unpack what happens when an educator who's just starting to maybe notice difference exists gets, well, forced into accountability. Their first impulse often isn't reflection, it's defending their good character.
We're protecting themselves.
Exactly. And accountability is often the catalyst needed to move past that defensive stage.
The tension here couldn't be clearer, could it? It's like the perfect deep dive subject. You've got Mr. James, tenured, seen as professional, and he truly deeply believes he treats all his kids the same.
Mm-hmm.
Yet the sources we looked at detail these serious escalating complaints. They're coming from Black and South Asian parents who are saying, no, our children are facing chronic unfairness, exclusion in his classroom.
It's that classic equity paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
If someone is absolutely convinced they're doing everything right, how can bias even creep in? Where does it come from?
Exactly. So we really have to tackle this core question that comes out of the case study. How can this principle we all hear, treating everyone the same, actually become, in practice, a fundamental mechanism of bias?
It sounds counterintuitive, but yeah.
So let's unpack that with our first big finding from the sources. Treating everyone the same can be a profound form of bias. Mr. James, he explicitly champions what he calls a colorblind approach.
Right.
For him, that's always meant being fair, being unbiased. That's the goal.
It's the sort of old school gold standard, wasn't it? But here's the snag. Fairness isn't always sameness. When Mr. James just dismisses cultural differences or different experiences as, irrelevant distractions,
Yeah.
he doesn't actually create some neutral space. He just automatically, probably without even realizing it, defaults to the only cultural benchmark he knows intimately.
His own.
His own. Exactly.
And the sources show the impact on the students from different backgrounds is pretty immediate. They feel singled out, they feel misunderstood, they don't feel treated fairly at all.
Because their ways of engaging, how they communicate, their habits, maybe their energy levels, if they don't mirror the teacher's familiar norms,
Right.
they aren't seen as just acceptable variations. They're treated like deviations, things that need correcting.
Okay, so that sets up the problem. How do we understand why he's resistant to seeing this?
Well, this brings us straight to the second key concept, which kind of explains the root cause of Mr. James's resistance. We call it the cave of privilege. And his specific cave, we're defining it as the comfort of sameness.
The comfort of sameness. Wow, that phrase alone says a lot. Tell us a bit more about the mechanics of this particular cave.
Well, the sources give us some background, and it's really critical here. He grew up in a small town, very homogenous, mostly white middle-class peer group.
Pretty standard for some areas, yeah.
And his whole social and professional life, really up until recently, just reinforced this powerful underlying idea that being colorblind equals good manners.
The idea that you just don't mention race or culture.
Exactly. It's seen as polite, avoids conflict, makes you a good person in that context.
Which means his own identity, his way of being, has always just been the default, the unspoken standard. He hasn't really had that reflective practice that, frankly, exposure to different kind of forces on you.
Precisely. And that lack of exposure, that lack of, let's call it productive friction, it leaves professional biases completely unexamined. We sometimes assume, professional training covers all this.
Right, tick the box.
Yeah, but if a teacher brings these deeply ingrained, unexamined habits of sameness into the classroom, those habits just flourish. Why? Because they feel comfortable. They feel right to the teacher.
So it's not just an inconvenience, this lack of exposure?
No, that's the systemic risk the case highlights. It's a genuine professional vulnerability that directly impacts students. It's not just about him, it's about the kids.
Okay, so if this core dilemma is rooted in this sort of unexamined comfort, we have to look at the consequences, what actually happens in the classroom day to day.
Yeah, and this leads us straight to takeaway 3. Intent isn't a shield against impact, and we need to be really clear here. The sources don't paint Mr. James as malicious. He's not trying to cause harm.
No, he genuinely meant well.
He spent years trying to be that professional who treated all his kids the same. But, and this is the hard part, good intentions simply do not guarantee a safe classroom.
The narrative here is so powerful because it shows the harm isn't from malice, it builds quietly. It's the compounding effect of these unexamined habits. And it's really evident in the specific racially coded behaviors the parents reported.
And when we say racially coded behaviors, we're not usually talking about, explicit slurs or anything obvious like that.
No, much more subtle.
Much more subtle, it's about norms. So Mr. James's insistence on strict compliance, on quietness, a very particular type of neat passive engagement. He sees that as just good discipline.
Standard classroom management, he'd say.
Right. But it operates directly against cultural backgrounds that might value more active, more confident, maybe even louder ways of expressing yourself or engaging with learning.
And the results, as documented in the sources, they're just devastatingly consistent. Black and South Asian kids are disproportionately getting singled out for really minor things, talking, moving, showing enthusiasm, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the knock-on effect is they miss out. They miss the rewards, the praise, the positive feedback that consistently goes to the kids who just naturally mirror Mr. James's specific, culturally ingrained expectations.
Think about those two key examples the parents shared. You have the black boy whose confident question delivered maybe with natural volume, assertiveness, it's immediately read by Mr. James as disrespect.
He's reading the tone, not the substance.
Exactly, through his own cultural lens. And then conversely, you see the Muslim girl whose need to perform a brief, quiet prayer is seen not as, a valid expression of her identity,
But as a disruption.
as a disruption to his established routine. These small, repeated actions, they actively silence identity over time.
This really forces us to confront takeaway 4 then. Safeguarding must include emotional and identity safety. This feels like it pushes beyond the traditional view of safeguarding, which is often focused on just physical safety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The profession really needs to grapple with this. Inclusion isn't just a nice to have. It's a core part of a school's legal and moral duty of care. The sources make such a compelling case that these subtle, almost invisible wounds from unintentional bias, they're a major safeguarding concern.
Why specifically?
Because they fundamentally undermine a child's sense of belonging, their sense of self-worth, day in, day out.
So the non-physical risks identified here are actually pretty profound. You've got repeated exclusion from praise or positive affirmation, the systemic silencing of a child's cultural or religious identity,
Yeah.
and just the cumulative psychological weight of constant, even if unintentional, racial microaggressions. We're talking about kids actively trying to make themselves smaller, quieter, just to fit into a space that doesn't really see or recognize them fully.
It's heartbreaking when you frame it like
It
that.
is. So, okay, we've established intent is no shield against this harm. But what finally forces that shield down, what makes the difference? That's where this accountability meeting comes in, right? The crucial turning point documented in the source material is summed up really well. Mr. James meets the head teacher when comfort meets accountability.
This meeting is basically the system stepping in. And it's presented, initially at least, not as some punitive showdown, but more like
Right.
an inescapable reality check.
How does he arrive? What's his mindset?
Well, he arrives slightly irritated, feeling a bit unjustly accused, curious maybe. But he's operating firmly in that defensive stage +1 mindset we talked about.
And his immediate defense, the thing he clings to.
It's that mantra, the one we discussed. I treat everyone the same. He genuinely struggles to connect his actions, which he sees as just following rules, with this idea of unfairness. There's real confusion there,
Yeah.
and maybe a touch of resentment, like,
Why me? Why now?
exactly. Why now? Why me? I've been doing this for 15 years. His whole professional identity is being fundamentally challenged.
But that defensiveness just hits a brick wall, doesn't it? When the head teacher changes tack and presents the actual raw feedback from the children and their families, that's the sound of reality breaking through the comfort zone.
Oh, absolutely. The head teacher basically brings the students' voices right into that quiet office. And the quote shared, wow, they are incredibly impactful. Just listen to the weight of this one piece of student feedback. It feels like I can't breathe in his classroom.
Just pause on that. The emotional, psychological pressure in that phrase. A child feeling suffocated by their learning environment. And then there's the feedback that speaks right to the bias mechanism we discussed. He only praises the quiet ones, like him.
It points right at the sameness issue, and maybe the most damning indictment, the one showing that lack of real connection. He never asks me how I'm doing, just tells me off.
Ugh. So their relationship is defined by negative interactions, not connection.
That's how it feels to that child.
And this is where the critical shift happens in the narrative. We know Mr. James doesn't respond out loud. He avoids eye contact, stares at the floor. But the sources, they give us this window into his inner thoughts during that silence. This is the moment that emerging awareness starts maybe, just maybe, turning into acceptance.
His inner monologue is the psychological turning point.
Yeah.
It's the hinge where stage +1 finally starts to give way. He thinks to himself, quite clearly, I do that, don't I?
Ah, recognition.
Yeah, and it's followed by this devastating realization. I'm harder on some kids, but I didn't mean to be. That internal acceptance that, yes, he is unfair to children who are different from him, even if he didn't intend it. That's the absolutely necessary first step to move beyond stage +1 defensiveness. The self-protection is finally quieted by the undeniable evidence of harm.
The head teacher doesn't just leave him there in that silence, though, right? She moves to action.
No, she immediately proposes an action plan. It's built around reflection, support, and crucially, mandates a meeting with the parents the very next day.
And Mr. James agrees.
Reluctantly, yes. The sources suggest he agrees reluctantly. He sees the severity, the inevitability of it now. He'd probably much rather retreat back into his comfort of sameness. But the accountability structure, the leadership, has made this discomfort a required condition for him to continue his practice.
So his journey towards growth, it's suddenly not optional anymore.
Not if he wants to keep his job and address the harm, no.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, let's talk about the path forward. Takeaway 5 seems crucial here. The path forward is coaching, not condemnation.
Yes. When a teacher's unintentional bias is causing documented harm like this, institutions have to be really careful. Just condemning them, labeling, punishing, it often just breeds more defensiveness. It makes the teacher retreat further into that cave.
So the goal isn't just to fire Mr. James necessarily.
Not initially, no. The goal is to shift his practice. The sources strongly advocate for a coaching model. That means creating a safe, reflective space for him. Yes. Using things like peer observation, perhaps, to help him spot those unexamined habits in real time. Giving him practical tools to build cultural competence. It's about building capacity, not just assigning blame.
That's such an important message for anyone listening, especially those in leadership or mentoring roles. Supporting the well-meaning professional means focusing on sustained development.
Exactly. Mr. James now stands at this very real crossroads. He has a choice. Retreat back into the familiar professional safety of the comfort of sameness, which now clearly means ignoring the harm he caused, or step into the necessary discomfort that true growth requires.
And the entire case of Mr. James really shows us, doesn't it, that moving beyond just having good intentions requires so much more than just wanting to be a fair person. It demands real courage. The courage to step outside our own caves of professional comfort, whatever they may be, and actively confront the documented impact of our unexamined habits.
So, as you reflect on this journey, maybe ask yourself this question. When you're faced with your own professional mirror, maybe it's feedback, maybe it's a difficult realization, what's just one small step you can take, today perhaps, to move forward, knowing, as Mr. James is learning, that discomfort is often a prerequisite for genuine growth.
That's the real lasting lesson from Mr. James's difficult turning point. A powerful thought to end on.